Assalamu alaikum. Nasir. Today we are going to talk about short report. Okay. In the previous 2-3 lectures we did discuss report writing, right? In the sense that we first discussed parts of report, then we did talk about long report and parts of long report. And in the previous lecture, as I was saying, that long report has 3 parts: introductory parts, body of the report, and supplemental parts. Okay. So we did discuss introductory parts, we did discuss supplemental parts, and as I said, body of the report means the whole report, the report itself. Okay. But in practical life, in most of the cases, you are not asked to write a long report, because long report is a hectic effort and different people are involved in exams, in routine life. In most of the cases, you are asked to write a short report. As I was saying, in case of long report, body of the report. To actually, body of the report means the whole report. Okay. So this thing is very much required in practical life. How to write a short report. Okay. If long report is of 10 pages or so, the requirement of short report is usually of 2 to 5 pages. 2 to 5. Okay. 2 to 5 pages. In general, students write something like 3 pages, 2.5 pages, it's okay. But short report can be taken in 2 ways. The first is, short report can be formal, short report can be informal. Clear? Right, I have discussed this thing in detail. Let me repeat a bit. Formal is something that is according to the set procedure, right? According to a set standard, that is according to a set hierarchy. Okay, and the subject of that report is very important. So to make a thing formal, we say, in case of formal, as I said earlier, two things are very much required. What? Number one, hierarchical level. The person who has asked you to write that report. This thing is okay. And the second thing was the subject or subject matter. In case of long report or short report, right? These 2 things in a way are a sort of touchstone of the thing that this thing is formal. Sometimes you're asked to write a short report and they don't mention the thing whether it's formal or informal. And from these 2 things you have to guess it's formal or informal. Clear? So today we are going to talk about short report, but we can call it short formal report. Short, the most important, short formal report. Informal report is a bit informal in the sense that it means it is never from the top notch. Some middle level person asked to write some report. It's not that important, because that's why it's called informal. So our main focus would be on the thing that how to write a short formal report. Short formal report. Okay. So may I? Okay. So what are the different parts of a short formal report? In case of short informal report, 2 parts are almost the same, but a little bit differences there. But do focus on this thing, how to write a short formal report. Okay. How would you start? Yes, 2, 3, 4 things are there. Let me take it down and then we'll elaborate. The first thing is what we call, as we did discuss in case of long report, to submitted to. Okay. This was the stuff of title page, if you can recall, in case of long report. Then submitted by. Submitted by. Double dot and name of that person and designation. We have discussed this thing. Okay. Then subject, the title of that report, what that report is about. Okay. And then date. we start the short formal report in this fashion. In case of long report, this stuff is written on title page, right? But over here, in that case, we use the whole page for that. But in this case, we just write these 4 things with a little bit proper spacing, something like this, usually in the left corner. Okay, suppose you have to write a report, so we write all this stuff over here. Submitted to Mr. Rana Gul Muhammad, right? GM, research. Submitted by Anjad Bhatti, manager, research. Subject, right? Report about the current situation of coronavirus in Lahore, and date means date. So actually this was the stuff of title page, but we have to start in this fashion. Clear? Okay. The very next thing is what we call introduction. In case of long report, right, introduction needs much more attention and a lot of stuff is there. Okay, as we did discuss that, right? Executive summary is there, acknowledgements are there, contents are there. Okay, and then the whole detail. In this case, it's not the case. We write in introduction in 1 paragraph or so. 1 paragraph is fine in routine. In some cases, it might be up 2, right? And practically the word introduction or intro, sometimes in MCQ they do ask this thing, whether this word introduction must be written or not. In case of long report, it is considered compulsory. In case of short report, short formal report, it is considered optional. It means you might or might not use this word. Instead of writing this word, you might start writing intro of that. What's meant by intro? Most of the students, most of the candidates, they are not clear about the very concept of intro. Okay, so first let me make the full list. The second thing is intro, and the third is methodology. Or sometimes we call it procedure. Okay, in some cases we call it sources. So different names are there, stuff is the same. This is the third part, and the fourth part is I should maintain the same order. Number 4, it is findings. Okay, or sometimes for finding we use the term discussion. Getting? Okay. And number 5 is summary. It's not executive summary, it is just summary. Number 6 is conclusion. Okay. And number 7 is recommendations or suggestions, but generally they use the word recommendations. So these 5-6 things are there. If you stick to this format, so you can get half of the marks, right? But in practical life, these things are not that important. The main thing is what actually you have written in that. Okay, so these are the basic parts. The first, mention these things in the extreme left, then introduction, then methodology, then findings, then summary, then conclusion, and then recommendation. This is the sequence. But the main thing is actually what's meant by all these. Okay, and whether we have to write this thing or not. Okay, so in routine we do start like this. Okay, but we don't obviously mention this thing. We just write something like this. May I rub it out? Okay, so these are the things, and so let's kiss all of them one by one. The first thing, it's clear. Okay, after writing this, we write what? After writing this, we write intro, as I've said. So intro or introduction. Introduction usually of 1 paragraph or so. The misconcept is people think the introduction is something, how to introduce your firm, how to introduce some general topic. Actually, what's your sense? What's meant by the word introduction? Introduction basically, may I have your attention? Introduction basically means elaboration of this, right? It's not something, it's not a saga, it's not a story. Just elaborate these 3-4 points in one paragraph. That would be your intro. That would be your intro. Suppose I say, this report was submitted to Mr. Gul Muhammad GM. The report was submitted by, right, Ashraf Khan, manager, planning, research. The subject of the report is this, and the date of submission of report was this. It means intro. Don't confuse this thing with routine intro. It means elaborating these 4 points in paragraph form. Clear? Okay. Intro. And we, as I've said, we do use the word intro. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. What next? The next thing is methodology. And we are coming in right sequence, right? This thing, then this, then this. That was, methodology. No need of numbering or this or that. We just write, but we do write this thing. Methodology. No need of mentioning this is number 1, this is number 2. It sounds a bit childish. Okay. Methodology are sources, are procedure. Don't confuse this thing with other things. Methodology basically means whenever you start some project, whenever you collect some data, so people do ask you, how did you collect all this? What was your strategy? What was your methodology? How did you collect? So methodologies or sources can be different. Right? Suppose methodology includes, it can be something like interview. You interview different people. Okay. It can be, in methodology you can say, it can be questionnaire method. Okay. These are different methodologies. Right? In general we say survey approach, overall survey of something. It can be like this. It can be sort of observation method. Okay. So in routine, these are a bit more common methodologies, right? So interview has different forms, right? It can be physical interview. When you meet someone, you just physically go over there and have sort of chit chat. It can be telephonic. You talk to someone on telephone. I'm just mentioning these are different types. Nowadays, all of you know stage of video conferencing, right? In which you sometimes interview is there and so video is also there. So different techniques are there. Questionnaire method basically means you distribute a questionnaire in which a list sort of points are there. Do you like this thing? Do you dislike this thing? Do you like it very much? You would have seen this is, as would have seen in case of different products, this questionnaire method is still common, especially in a bit less developed countries. Survey approach basically means overall. These things actually are part of survey. Overall, right? So it includes this thing, this thing, this thing. Observation method stands for what? Sometimes you observe a thing by directly going over there. Suppose you say, whatever you're saying, I cannot believe this thing. Let me observe. You physically go over there and then you observe whether this is the truth. This was the cause of accident. This is what's happening. So observation method once again can be direct observation and it can be indirect observation. It is just for the sake of concept. Otherwise, while writing that report, you are not supposed to mention these details. Indirect observation. So what is the difference between these two? Direct observation basically means the person who is working on that report, he or she himself herself goes to that place to see. But this thing is not actually feasible in the sense that, right, one person cannot actually go to different places, different spots at the same time. So in routine, instead of this, indirect observation, or sometimes we call it representation method. What? This method is sometimes called, this one, representation method. This is, we take result of this thing, representation method. That means you appoint different people, you make sort of groups, teams, and ask them to, suppose I ask some students of mine, I request them, okay, we have to collect data about this thing directly. So I cannot obviously manage all this. So this is a team of 5, this is a team of 5, this is a group of 6. You go over there and then tell what is happening. So practically, indirect observation or representation method is more common. These are different methodologies, right? But while writing that report, we don't make mention of all these. It is possible that we just suppose, in some cases, if you say online, right, are different, you collect data from different sites, different links. So in that case, you won't make mention of even one of these. In methodology, you will just mention that thing that you have taken resort to, that you have actually practically done. Suppose I say, to collect this report, we did nothing, we just visited different sites, different links, hyperlinks, and we collected all this. Okay, clear? Sometimes we say that we just interviewed, right? Methodology might include just one. We did nothing, we just interviewed people of different age groups, of different genders, and this is the response. Or sometimes we say we delivered, we gave questions to different people and checked their response. Or it might be a mix of all this. It is possible in case of, especially in case of long reports, they take resort to write this. It's a mix of all that. Okay. So in methodology, what you have to do, instead of writing all this, it is just for the sake of concept. You just do what? You will just say that we collected this report, right, by interviewing different people, by surveying such and such places, by giving questions to different people, whatever. Methodology, once again, is of one paragraph or so, right? In some cases, one paragraph, or it might be the game of 2-3 lines, because it's a short report. Because the short report sort of leniency is there. Clear? You are not being attentive, are you? Okay, it's okay. This is the game of minutes now. So methodology, we started from this, then intro, then methodology. But actually what happens, students sometimes they write these things and they think that, okay, they have written almost half of the report. When I ask them, okay, so suppose why are you going to clear that exam? I said, I had written everything, but God knows what happened. So they do miss what? They do miss this thing, findings. They say they just missed one point, and that was findings. But they don't understand the thing. The findings means the report. Finding is the pivot of that. Findings of short report means what the hell that report is. The whole report itself. In case of short report, this is a game of findings. It was just a way of presenting, right? So we did this, we did intro methodology, but this is the whole story. So if you just miss this point, so this is not one point. It means you have not written the report. Obviously, you can think of getting good marks. Findings can be written in different forms, but in short formal report, we usually write this thing, findings, double dot, and then we make sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 headings. Right? That way actually it becomes a bit easier to understand what the story is. Suppose you want to collect some report about the declining enrollment. So you say why the number of students in university is decreasing. So in findings you can make sort of 4 or 5 headings. Like suppose you say, right, we interviewed this and that, and findings means suppose the first finding can be response of response of, right, the students, heading number 1. What students say. So it's a response of the management. These are different headings. Response of the management. Are you getting? So suppose I say response of the parents, what they say. Response of the old students. Okay? Response of the old students, response of the general public. It means we just go make 4 or 5 headings just to make it clear. And findings mean the report itself, the whole report. So this thing is the hub, this is the pivot. If you don't mention this thing, it means your concept is not clear. So headings do vary, right, as per situation. In case of financial report, headings are different. In case of marketing reports, headings are different. In case of corona, headings are different. So one can coin different headings. Okay, but the point is, in headings, right, actually we make headings and then give detail of that. And if the report is of 2 to 5 pages, the findings are something like, suppose, 1.5 or 2 pages. Because findings means the report. This is the main thing. Right, 1 paragraph or so, 1 paragraph or so, 1 paragraph or so, and this is the real story in finding you, right? But findings must be written in present. We never say that this happened. We say we, right? Suppose students of this age group, they think that this, the reason of, right, decreasing number of students is this. So findings should be written in present. Are you getting? Most of the students write that in the past or something. That's incorrect. Clear? So findings means the main story. After these findings, the next thing is, yes, can you recall? Yeah, that was summary. Okay? Summary, as you can guess, summary means you do what? Yes? You just summarize whatever was discussed in the findings, whatever you mentioned in the findings, you just make sort of nutshell of that, pith of that, abridged version of that. Okay, you just make that. So summary is always based on your findings. Okay, you are feeling a bit sleepy, it's okay. So summary means the summary is always written on the basis of the findings. Suppose you take response of different people, students say this, parents say this, this and this, and finally in summary you write something like this. You just amalgamate all that. You say, suppose you say, write poverty of the general public, non-serious attitude of the students, non-cooperation of the management, right, non-seriousness of the teachers are the main reasons of this. In summary, right, summary is always based on findings. So we are not supposed to add something, right? It should be, right? Suppose the findings were of 2 pages, the summary would be of just 1 paragraph. It's enough, 1 paragraph or so. Clear? What next? Conclusion. Sometimes students are very confused, right, about these two. You see, summary means conclusion, conclusion means summary. So what's your guess? Is it the same stuff? After summary, the next thing is conclusion. If you're not clear about this thing, how to actually differentiate between these two, a simple technique is you write summary, then you put oblique like this and write it like this. Summary oblique conclusion. Okay? It is a way of, so that whether you are clear about or not, but that way you do succeed in communicating that thing. But technically, conclusion is basically sort of subjective opinion. Suppose there's a fight, right? After listening to both the parties, you make sort of opinion. This is not solution of that. This is your opinion. You say, this thing is this, so I think that this is because of this thing. It is sort of evaluation. It is sort of subjective opinion of yours. It's not summary. So I say, suppose some serious fight goes on, students are fighting, as sort of scuffle is going on. Someone says, this group is responsible, girls are responsible, that group is responsible. if I suppose collect some report, I say my conclusion is all of them are good, they're very loving, very cooperative. It is just because of their actually tender age, all of them are teenagers, so all of them are emotional. That's why this confusion is there. Otherwise, they are still friends and they do respect each other, one another even now. So it is sort of subjective opinion or evaluation. It means your opinion. This is no way solution of that thing. Okay? Is it clear now? Right? Suppose you say in 2000, right? Suppose 15 topper was of this university. In 2000, right? 16 the guy of such and such university topped, and once again the guy who topped was of the same university, right? So it means, say, suppose Harvard University, say, right? Students, they topped 4 times. Other university students topped one time. So what is your conclusion? It means Harvard is still at number 1 in performance. Okay. So this is your conclusion. And the most important thing in report writing practically is actually recommendations. Recommendation basically means what? Recommendations. Because the purpose of writing reports is not just collecting data. If you just collect data, that is called, and if you organize that a bit, that is information report. But most of the reports are analytical reports. Analytical report, and the main purpose of collecting a report is not just getting information. The main purpose is to find some solution, how to solve that problem. So recommendations, I personally think it is the pivot of the report, in the sense that actually the purpose of collecting all that is this here, what to do now. So recommendation basically means what measures can be taken to solve this problem, what steps need to be taken to curb this thing. So recommendations are your suggestions on the basis of all that. Okay. As I've said earlier too, recommendations are compulsory part of analytical report when you analyze a thing. But in case of information reports, they might or might not be there. Okay. What's the way of writing recommendations? We usually write it like this: recommendations, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We actually suggest some, these measures can be taken to solve this problem. But your recommendation should not be in vague and generalized form. Suppose the staff needs to be increased, the overall condition of the cafeteria must be improved. These are general, these should be, recommendation should be solid, concrete. Suppose you say the number of staff needs to be increased from 55 to 65, right? In the very next month, things should be solid. Okay. Suppose you say overall, right, such and such section of right cafeteria needs to be improved like this. It means something, it should not look like the statement of a kid. It should look like very formal things. Okay, yeah. These are the steps, because on the basis of these recommendations, mega projects are taken, right, accomplished. Suppose you want to construct some overhead bridges, and recommendations say that everything is fine, so it's okay, and after all that, all of a sudden, all that collapses. So on the basis of, in the current right situation, all of you know that different reports are being collected pertaining to this coronavirus, right, COVID-19, and then recommendations are being made. People do, okay, take these steps, be open, be closed, be right, something in between. So these are different recommendations, and these are very formal. Okay, recommendation basically means steps that need to be taken to control that thing. Clear? But recommendation, one thing that needs a bit attention is, people you say we should do this thing. This should not be the way of writing. Recommendations should be written in passive voice, PV, because here we are not concerned who is doing that thing. The main concern is what needs to be done, right? Instead of saying we should increase the number of teachers from 55 to 65, the better way of writing is the number of teachers must be increased from this to this. So 4 or 5 recommendations, and that's all. In exams, obviously, they don't expect something marvelous, so just give a flick through of all this. and you will, inshallah, everything will turn fine. So this was short formal report. If there is still some ambiguity, inshallah, we'll try to overcome that in the coming lectures. Thank you very much. Take care. Inshallah, see you very soon. Assalamu alaikum. Allah Hafiz.